So there's a couple famous lines that came from the 1996 movie called Jerry Maguire. And that movie starred Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding Jr. And it included one of the famous lines, "You complete me." And that's actually quoted quite often. But one of the most famous lines, Cuba himself said that people still repeat it to him whenever they see him on the streets or anywhere, and it's this: "Show me the money. Show me the money." There's actually a great 1-minute scene inside the movie where the phrase is said over and over again. But I have to be honest with you. The concept of being completed by another person is probably just as bad of an idea as someone going around and saying the words, "Show me the money, show me the money." Though I suppose that it is kind of funny, and in the movie it's kind of funny, but in reality I think it might be pretty devastating. Certainly not funny if the pastor of a church says, "Show me the money." Really, what would happen is you would be taking a huge risk to use that kind of a line in a sermon. Could you imagine? I took enough of a risk just titling this video blog, "Show Me the Money." Imagine if I titled the sermon and it got out into the newspapers that the title of this week's sermon was "Show Me the Money." The church would probably end up being pretty well empty that day. And I don't really blame anybody, because I'm pretty sure that I probably wouldn't show up for that sermon even myself. Because they say there's a couple things that you can't talk about in life, right? Religion and politics. Well, I would say there's probably something you just can't talk about at church either: money. Really, money gives people a feeling that they cringe about when they hear that being discussed at church. And churches at times have this reputation of being institutions that are begging for people to give them more money. I had one person tell me about a church experiences, actually multiple experiences that he had, where pastors would pass around the offering plate over and over again until they got what they felt was the proper amount of money inside those offering plates. And I think that's just kind of messed up. And no wonder people don't want to discuss money inside of the church anymore. But God himself does. In fact, God does not hesitate in the scriptures to discuss money. And the next passage in the book of Proverbs that we're going to read is one of maybe the best examples of getting to find out what God's feelings on giving to him, or what some people might call tithes and offerings, really are. So here it is, Proverbs chapter 3 and verses 9 to 10 say this: "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then," verse 10, "your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine." There you go. God says, "Show me the money." Well, not really. Actually, what God is saying is, allow your money to show me where your heart is at. Churches, I guess we could say, don't really need money. God certainly doesn't need money. He owns everything to begin with. But God does choose to use the money that he is giving to people, that people have, really to demonstrate something, and also to accomplish his mission here on earth. At least that better be what churches and Christian organizations are using God's money for, to accomplish God's mission here on earth. Really, God doesn't need my money. He doesn't need your money. God just wants to be so important in your life that you are willing to give to him the first fruits of that which you have earned, or the first fruits of that which he has given to you. Those that give the first fruits of their labor are also those who give the first fruits of their hearts. And those are the ones that will walk around feeling blessed. That's why God says he'll take care of filling your personal storehouses, your barns or your vats. So then the question is, should one give to God so that they can get more stuff? Because it sounds like that's how it works. Well, no, it doesn't really work that way. God just wants to know where your heart is at. And if your heart is filled with greed, it doesn't matter how much you give. God isn't going to use that as an area to bless you. The New Testament says to only give out of a cheerful heart, to give out of a pure heart. It's the heart that God is really concerned with. But those who have that pure and that giving and cheerful heart, those are the ones God's able to bless abundantly. There's a guy by the name of R.G. Letourneau, and he was recognized really by the world. The entire world recognizes him as the inventor of almost every modern day earth-moving piece of equipment. And R.G. Letourneau gave 90% of his salary to God's ministry work. And one thing he said about it was this. He said, and I quote, "I shovel money out and God shovels it back in. But God has a way bigger shovel." And it's kind of strange at this time because as far as on earth was concerned, R.G. Letourneau literally had the biggest shovel of anybody. But it doesn't matter how big your shovel is. It matters how dedicated our hearts are to God. That is what God blesses according to. And our use of money is really only an indicator of how we use our hearts. I hope that makes sense, and all of you realize that I am not saying, show me the money. I'm going to leave that line to the movies. What I am saying is this: show God your true heart. And one area that you can do that is in the use of your money. We'll see you in a couple days.